Hello everybody and thank you for joining me. This is Sierra from Sierra T Designs, and today I have this whimsical seasonal sketch thank you card to share with you. So let's jump right in. So to start, we are going to make the background, and I like to adhere a replacement nonstick mat to my glass mat. Now, this is the exact same mat that's off to the right hand there that's holding my tea, but that one I use to kind of make sure that the white light is not shining on my black mat. So I like to bring in a spare one when I like to work with like a smooshing technique. So you don't need a second one. This is just how I'm using it because I like to use the other one to diffuse light. So I have 4 colors of distress inks here. I have picked raspberry, saltwater taffy, peacock feathers, and salvaged patina. And then I also have a piece of distress watercolor cardstock. And we are going to do a smooshing technique. And I'm going to show you here that I do heat set it in between each layer. I'm not going to show you the heat setting of each layer, but do know that I am actually heat setting between each layer. This will just help your colors to not blend. I don't want the colors to keep mixing. I want to create layers. So with that, I need to set the layer each time, and then they won't move around every time you do a new layer. So I'm going to use those same 4 colors, and I'm kind of keep going through them here. And for this one, I put new color down and I brought in some of the Ink on 3 liquid pixie dust. Now this stuff is stunning, and it's kind of a way to make your own mica. Well, it's not a spray, but your own kind of shimmery mica-y ink color. I know that I like to use the mica sprays that Tim Holtz came out with at Halloween and Christmas, but a lot of people can't get them now. And because of that, that's kind of a deterrent that people can't use those. So this is me showing you a way to kind of create your own effect. And in this, I'm using distress inks. This would work with oxides. This would work with just regular sprays. Like, you don't need the specific items I am using unless you want them, which is great, but you don't have to have them. This would work with any ink that is water blendable and soluble. So you saw me use my finger and kind of just mix them around. And then I just wiped my finger off on a baby wipe because it is, again, water soluble, so it doesn't stick on your hands. I don't mind getting my hands covered in ink. I think it's a lot of fun, actually, but completely up to you and your comfort level. And you can see here, I'm just continuing to build colors. I did one set with just the Salvaged Patina and Peacock feathers and heat set that. And then I'm going in with just the Saltwater Taffy and the picked raspberry, and I heat set that. And then now we're going to work on what I want to I'm going to say it's the focal image, although it really isn't. The sentiment is really my focal, but this is just there to enhance the beauty of this card. And you guys know, to me, dies are an investment. They're an inexpensive item in the crafting world. They're not inexpensive. They're an expensive item in the crafting world. And I like to get as much bang for my buck with my dies as possible. So I don't care if it's considered seasonal. I don't care if it's considered specific to one thing. I'm going to use it consistently all the time for whatever the heck I can come up with. So in this one, I love this die set. You guys know that I love Tim Holtz dies. I love Tim Holtz products, period. But specifically his dies, and I want to use them as much as I can come up with. So I use that seasonal sketch, and now be smarter than me. Adhere your dies down to your whatever material you're cutting them out of. In this case, I used heavyweight vellum for the bases, and I used a platinum glitter cardstock for the top layer. Adhere them down, because of course mine slid. So they kind of ended up cutting off of the edge a little bit on one of the leaves. I don't mind. I think it kind of adds a cool texture. But if you don't like that, by all means, actually use something to adhere your dies to your whatever you're using, cardstock, vellum, whatever. And then it won't slide around. You'll have a lot easier time. And then I did bring in my retractable die pick here, and I'm just poking out all of the areas. I do find glitter cardstock can be a little bit more temperamental. And this is a very intricate piece. I mean, you see me popping out some of the pieces. Some of the pieces got a little bit stuck. You could run them through your die cutting machine more than once if that's something you like to do. I'm generally too lazy to reline up my die, and I don't want it to create any issues. So I usually just bring in my Tim Holtz mini snips and just snip off whatever little area is kind of stuck. I didn't keep that footage in here because my head is in the way and you can't see anything anyways. But you'll see here, like I'll flip it back and forth and make sure that the area is supposed to come out. And if it's stuck a little bit anywhere, then I just bring in my snips and trim them off. That's kind of my way of doing that. There's no right or wrong way. That's just how I like to do it. And then here's the sentiment. Now, I chose the sentiment to be what you notice first. So I chose to put it on a white piece of cardstock, which is very eye-catching in this berry colored full design. This is a choice. You do not need to do this. You could absolutely do it on a colored piece of cardstock. It would blend in better. Or you could create another small piece here and, stamp your thing on that and maybe white heat emboss it, and it wouldn't stand out as much. I made that intentionally what your eye saw first. So keep that in mind with this, right? It doesn't need to be, if you don't like that feature, no problem. Change it up, do something a little different. Or die cut something. It doesn't have to be a stamped sentiment. And that sentiment came from the Simon Says Stamp Simply Thank You stamp set. I've had it quite a while. I don't know if I've ever used it. And then, of course, here I'm creating a layer. Now, originally, I wasn't going to give it this glitter layer, but I found that the glitter was only in one area and it didn't look finished to me. So I ended up giving it a mat with that same glitter cardstock. And had I originally planned that, I would have cut those detail dies out of the center of that glitter mat. Of course, you can bring in a rectangle die and do it that way instead. I just adhered it the way it was. But I mean, by all means, save your glitter cardstock if you want to do that for sure. And then I am going to kind of adhere my things down. So with my mat, I did cut that to be about 1/8 of an inch smaller than my A2 base. And then my colored panel, I cut 1/4 of an inch off each side. So that it is 1/8 of an inch smaller than my glitter mat. And then for it's a poinsettia, or poinsettia, however you like to say it. My poinsettia, I like to kind of adhere. Oh, and sorry, I left this little chunk in. You kind of can't see what I'm doing, but my supervisor had to come and double check what I was doing. She had to make sure that I was adhering it properly. And of course, she pulls focus. So I just left that little piece in so you guys can enjoy it. I get a lot of questions about my cats, so I wanted to keep that in for you. But I like to off-center the layer that goes on top of the base layer. Now, you don't need to do this if you don't like that look. I like that look. I find it adds a little bit of extra dimension and a little bit of extra texture. I like it, but by all means, do what works for you. If you prefer to do it lined up perfectly so that it's more symmetrical, by all means do that. There's no wrong way to do this. It's just very personal preference. And sometimes you have to play around with different things to kind of get to what your personal preference is. So that's just kind of what I prefer to do. And I did use my Barely Art glue for any of the fine gluing in here. And then I do bring in my Nuvo Deluxe for any of the bigger gluing, just because one has a finer tip and the other one doesn't. That's the only reason. I mean, you could literally use anything you like here. This is just my preferred types of glue. And I am going to adhere all my layers straight down. I didn't pop anything. Oh, no, I'm lying to you. I did pop up the poinsettia flower with a 3D foam square. Other than that, however, everything is layered flat to the card. I did kind of it's layered in that the leaves are behind the flower, right? And the sentiment is kind of tucked gently behind a leaf. But otherwise, everything is just one layer. So there's no real dimension to this card. I kind of did that intentionally just because I wanted it to be flatter. It's easier to mail, to be honest with you. So I kind of laid out how I wanted it to look, and I adhered my sentiment down first because I knew that it was going to sit slightly tucked under one of the leaves, and then I adhered the leaf next. I've brought my Barely Art glue back in for this stage because I don't want a lot of glue to seep out behind the vellum pieces. So I'm kind of putting a very thin layer where the glitter is over top of the vellum, and then you'll see me come in afterwards here in a second, and I'm going to kind of adhere any of the random glitter pieces that didn't really adhere because the glue wasn't on the vellum. if that makes sense. And then I bring in my acrylic block. Anytime I need something to be weighed down and I don't want to sit there and push on it with my finger, I bring in an acrylic block. I just find that way easier. Then I don't have to sit there and wait for it to kind of adhere. And then here is where I'm going to bring in that one 3D foam square. This is a very, very thin 3D foam square, and it's just going to be in the very center of the flower. And then I kind of spin it around a few times until I find where I'm happy with it, and then I press it down so it actually adheres. I did bring in a little bit more of my Barely Art glue. I didn't show it here, but I did bring in a little bit more and adhere just a couple of the poinsettia down just so that it wouldn't lift. And then I brought in some vanilla luster fusion sequins. These are from Studio Katia. They're stunning. They're one of my favorite sequins, and they don't steal the show. Again, everything here is kind of to accent the sentiment. Really, like the whole focus is the sentiment, and then you get to enjoy all this vibrant color behind it. But the focal is the sentiment. So I'm going to hold this up so you guys can enjoy it in all its glory. Love the pixie dust in the background there. It's just stunning. And of course, I had to put the little pieces I cut off on the inside because I hate to waste cardstock this beautiful. So this is the card I have for you guys today. I hope that you'll leave me a like, leave me a comment, and consider subscribing if you haven't already. I do new videos every Monday and Thursday. Thank you so much, guys, and I will see you again very soon. Bye-bye for now.